For years, the embassy compound in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's capital, looked like any other diplomatic mission. High walls, guarded gates, official vehicles coming and going. Places like this typically reflect cooperation among countries, meetings, development programs, and international partnerships. But in 2026, something happened that suddenly pulled that quiet diplomatic space into the spotlight. A criminal case. A U.S. embassy employee, Fode Sitafa Mara, was sentenced to life in prison after being convicted of sexually abusing two teenage girls while working in Burkina Faso. The victims were 13 and 15 years old when the abuse began. At first, many people assumed the case would be handled in Burkina Faso, but that's not what happened. Instead, the trial took place thousands of kilometers away in the United States. And that raises an important question. Why would a crime committed in Africa be judged somewhere else? Let's find out. The person at the center of the case was Fode Sitafa Mara, a 41-year-old U.S. citizen from Maryland who was working at the U.S. Embassy in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, at the time of the events. As many employees were posted abroad, he lived in a residence arranged for embassy staff. The home where the incidents occurred was leased to U.S. diplomatic personnel, a fact that later became important in the legal process. The case involved two teenage girls who were 13 and 15 years old when the incidents began. Prosecutors said the girls came from a vulnerable background, and their family was facing serious difficulties. Their mother was reportedly suffering from a life-threatening illness, which created a challenging situation for the family. According to the investigation, Mara used his position to build contact with the girls. Prosecutors told the court that he provided them with mobile phones, which he used to communicate directly with them. Evidence presented during the trial also showed that he sent inappropriate messages to one of the girls. Authorities said the situation persisted for about a year, from 2022 to 2023, while Mara was working in Burkina Faso. During the investigation, prosecutors also said Mara attempted to persuade a housekeeper to mislead investigators, which later led to an additional charge related to obstruction of justice. The case eventually went to trial in the U.S. District Court in Maryland, where a jury reviewed the evidence and delivered its verdict. Mara was found guilty on several charges related to the abuse of minors and interference with the investigation. At first glance, the situation seems simple. The events happened in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. So many people would naturally assume the case would be handled by the courts there. That is usually how criminal law works. When something happens in a country, the country's legal system investigates and prosecutes the crime. But this case followed a different path. The incidents took place inside a residence leased by the U.S. government for embassy personnel. Because the property was designated for official diplomatic use, it fell under a legal category that allows the United States to exercise jurisdiction over crimes committed there by its citizens. This meant American prosecutors were able to bring the case before a federal court in the United States. As a result, the trial took place in the U.S. District Court in Maryland, the state where Mara was from. The prosecution was conducted as part of Project Safe Childhood, a program launched by the U.S. Department of Justice in 2006 to combat the exploitation of children. The initiative focuses on investigating and prosecuting crimes involving minors, including cases where U.S. citizens commit offenses outside the country. Although the legal proceedings took place in the United States, the investigation involved cooperation between American authorities and officials in Burkina Faso. International cases like this often require coordination between different governments, especially when evidence, witnesses, or victims are located in another country. During the trial, prosecutors presented evidence describing how Mara maintained contact with the victims and the actions he took that led to the charges. The jury reviewed testimony, communications, and other information gathered during the investigation. After hearing the case, the jury reached its decision. Mara was found guilty of 4 counts of aggravated sexual abuse of a minor, as well as attempted coercion and enticement of a minor and attempted obstruction of justice. Following the conviction, the case moved to sentencing. In February 2026, the court delivered its final judgment: life imprisonment. Officials from the U.S. Department of Justice stated that the sentence reflected the seriousness of crimes involving the exploitation of minors. They emphasized that U.S. citizens can be prosecuted for such offenses even when they occur abroad. Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. Following the sentencing, officials from the U.S. Department of Justice issued statements about the case. Assistant Attorney General A. Tyson Duva said the crimes were extremely serious and emphasized that protecting children remains a major priority for law enforcement. Authorities also stated that the outcome demonstrated that U.S. citizens can face prosecution for crimes involving minors, even when those crimes occur outside the United States. Programs like Project Safe Childhood, under which the case was prosecuted, are designed to address situations in which children are harmed, and international cooperation may be necessary to pursue justice. For many people following the story, the life sentence represented an important moment of accountability. The legal process had investigated the allegations, examined the evidence in court, and reached a final decision. At the same time, the case highlighted how international legal systems operate when crimes involve foreign personnel working abroad. When incidents occur in diplomatic settings or involve citizens of another country, the legal landscape can become more complex. This case demonstrated how cooperation between governments and legal institutions can help bring such cases to court and ensure that serious crimes are addressed through the judicial system. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Stories like this rarely end in the courtroom. They often prompt people to consider the broader system surrounding the event. When incidents involve international personnel working inside another country, the situation naturally raises questions about how responsibility and oversight are shared. In this case, the events occurred in Ouagadougou, inside housing connected to a diplomatic mission. Diplomatic staff and employees from many countries live and work abroad under special arrangements designed to support international cooperation. These arrangements allow embassies and government missions to operate efficiently while maintaining the legal frameworks necessary for diplomacy. At the same time, those arrangements mean that when problems arise, the legal path may differ from what people expect. Instead of being handled entirely within the host country, the case can proceed through the legal system of the country that sent the personnel. That is what happened here. Even though the victims lived in Burkina Faso and the incidents occurred there, the trial was conducted in the United States, where the defendant was a citizen and where jurisdiction laws allowed prosecutors to bring the case. For some observers, this outcome shows how international legal cooperation can function when crimes cross borders. The investigation involved communication and coordination between Burkina Faso authorities and American investigators, helping gather the evidence needed for the trial. For others, the case highlights how global systems operate when diplomatic institutions interact with local communities. Situations like this remind people that oversight and accountability are important wherever international organizations and foreign personnel are present. Burkina Faso, like many countries, hosts embassies, development programs, and international missions from around the world. These partnerships often involve cooperation in areas such as development, security, and diplomacy. At the same time, they depend on robust systems that ensure individuals working within those structures comply with the law and respect the communities around them. The life sentence in this case brought a legal end to the events that occurred between 2022 and 2023. But it also leaves behind a broader question, one that many people continue to discuss when incidents like this arise. When crimes happen across borders, involving foreign personnel and local communities, how should international systems balance diplomacy, jurisdiction, and justice? By the time the sentence was announced in February 2026, the legal process had run its course. Investigators had gathered evidence, the case had gone through trial, and the court had delivered its final judgment. From a legal perspective, the story reached its conclusion. But the verdict also drew attention to a different issue, one that goes far beyond a single criminal trial. Every embassy operates with a degree of autonomy inside the country that hosts it. Diplomatic missions are designed to represent their governments, manage relations, and coordinate international activities. Staff members often live and work in environments that are somewhat separated from the surrounding community. That structure exists for practical reasons. It allows governments to operate abroad efficiently and maintain diplomatic functions. Yet it also creates a unique environment where oversight can sometimes become complicated. When institutions operate across borders, responsibility is divided between different legal systems and different authorities. Cases like this tend to draw attention to that reality. They remind people that international institutions do not operate in isolation from the societies around them. Embassy staff interact with local communities, employ local workers, and live within the cities that host diplomatic missions. Because of that, the behavior of individuals within those institutions can have consequences that reach far beyond the walls of the compound. For Burkina Faso, a country that hosts diplomatic missions from many nations, the case became part of a broader discussion about accountability and responsibility when foreign personnel work inside another country's society. It highlighted how important transparency and cooperation are when serious crimes occur. The life sentence closed the legal proceedings, but the conversation it sparked continues. There's another layer to this story that many people across Africa are beginning to talk about more openly. For decades, Western governments have often positioned themselves as the global referees of morality. They lecture countries about governance, human rights, transparency, and the rule of law. These messages are repeated through diplomatic speeches, development programs, and international institutions. But cases like this force people to pause and ask an uncomfortable question. If Western governments claim to represent the highest standards of accountability, then why do serious abuses sometimes emerge from within the very institutions meant to represent them abroad? This is not simply about one criminal act committed by one individual. Courts have already dealt with that part of the story. The deeper issue is the environment in which such individuals operate. Diplomatic missions carry enormous influence. They represent powerful states, operate behind guarded walls, and interact with local communities in ways that often escape public scrutiny. For many Africans, that imbalance of power raises concerns. When foreign institutions operate inside a country, they bring authority, resources, and political weight with them. Local citizens often assume that those institutions will uphold the highest ethical standards. When that trust is broken, it can deepen existing frustrations about how global power is exercised. Across Africa, conversations about sovereignty and accountability have been growing louder in recent years. Countries are increasingly asking whether international relationships should be structured in ways that place greater responsibility on foreign institutions operating within their borders. In that context, cases like this become more than isolated criminal trials. They become moments that spark wider reflection about power, responsibility, and respect between nations. The question many Africans are quietly asking is simple. If powerful countries expect accountability from the rest of the world, should they not demonstrate the same standard everywhere their institutions operate? And perhaps that is the most important conversation this case leaves behind. And that leaves us with an important question to consider. When international institutions operate inside a country, what is the best way to ensure that accountability, transparency, and justice are upheld for everyone involved? Let us know in the comment section. Is it a lesson to never give power unchecked? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence of how glorious Black people have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.